Jacob has a question for you guys. He said, I'd like to hear the money guy opinion on mutual funds with front-end load fees. Is it a red flag if an advisor wants to put you in these?
Yes. Is it a red flag? Got it. Okay. Here. So what is Jacob talking about? So a lot of mutual funds, when you go to buy them from an advisor, they might be what are called loaded funds. And a lot of them are A shares, which means they're loaded on the front end. So you want to go buy $100 of this fund. Well, the first 3%, 5%, whatever the commission is, will go to the advisor right off the top. You pay a front end commission to do that. Here's the ultimate question I'd ask Jacob. I don't want to say, and Brian, you may be more polite than, or you may be less polite than I am, whether it's good or bad. The question I would ask is why? Why am I buying a commissioned fund? And by the way, commission funds come in all types. They're the front end loaded. They're also back end loaded, and then there's some that are just loaded every single year. So you want to make sure you understand what you're buying. I would make the argument that whatever that fund is, there are probably some options available to you that are much less expensive, both from a commission standpoint as well as from an ongoing internal expense standpoint. So the question that Jacob ought to ask is, if the advisor is recommending that, I'd ask the question, why are you recommending this share class of this fund as opposed to this index fund that's no load, yada, yada, yada? What would you say to that?
I always like to give experience shares because I think you have to be careful because a lot of people I think are like me when I was in my early 20s. I had graduated with an accounting degree. I was working in public accounting. I had just read The Millionaire Next Door and The Wealthy Barber, on fire for this concept of personal finance and building wealth that my parents had not been able to build. And I wanted to I wanted to walk the walk. I wanted to start making the money work. So I didn't know where to start. So fortunately, there was a CPA at my firm whose roommate was selling mutual funds and other things. So I bought the regional bank fund from John Hancock, Class B. Oof. And then the John Hancock Special Equities, Class B. So as you can see, I didn't know what I was doing. But here's the thing. Even though those were inappropriate products, and the reason why is because Class B, you never see these things anywhere. I don't even know how these things were legal. They tried to mimic index funds or no load funds, and the fact they had no front-end commissions. But they would ding you up to 6% if you sold it on the back end. So think about all that compounding growth of the 90s, and then somebody gets to take 5-6% depending upon how many years you held it. But that's not where the bad stopped. Is that they also had an internal expense ratio on a lot of these funds of over 2.5%. Insane. Yep. Because if you think about now with index funds being basically free, that's 2.5% of performance every year you have to recapture just to catch where the market is. So here's my point. I wouldn't have become the financial mutant who has created all this without something starting the cast and rolling the ball forward of lighting the fire of my curiosity. So I'm not mad at the person that sold me that, but so that's why the first thing I was going to say is know thyself, is that was the thing that I didn't know any better. So there was actually value added to me by that salesperson because he got the ball started to where then I wanted to move to step 2, which is I started doing my homework. I started researching. And now that's what I was going to say. The third point is that the modern world, has it solved your problem of researching this and the fact that you can watch content like the Money Guy Show and other people like that, where we will load you up with free information on all these new products. Because Vanguard, if you go back in our archives, I guarantee you there's a show when I first started talking about index funds to the public. Guys, it was not the majority of people invested in index funds. It was actually active managers, and active managers were usually sold by wholesalers and then commissioned agents who had A share, B share, C shares, and so forth, all the alphabet soup. Now that's different. The majority of people are buying index funds as their investment. So the world and the market has shifted. So you've got to do your homework. We can't make specific recommendations to you. This is an education show. It's not a you come and we tell you what to do, because that would be inappropriate since we're licensed people. But I do think the modern world has created a lot of opportunity for you to do your own due diligence so you can figure out who you are, what you need. And then, is there an index fund? Is there a low-cost provider? Because Vanguards, the Fidelities, the Charles Schwabs, and their kind of all-in solutions has really opened up the world a lot differently. But that doesn't mean that there's not going to be some commission person that didn't get your journey started. So I guess I'm a little more grace-filled.
Well, that's what you make a great point, because I think it's important. Just because someone recommends a commission product or someone tries to sell you an insurance policy does not mean that that person is a bad person. At the end of the day, no one's going to care about your money more than you care about your money. So you have to be the educated consumer. Don't just assume because someone's recommending that for you that they don't have your best intention at heart. They just may not know. At the beginning of my career, I started on the insurance commission side of things, and that's all that I knew. And so everything that seemed like an appropriate solution until I became educated, until I actually figured out that there was more out there, were better solutions out there. So you have to be an advocate for yourself.
If we're really cool with our editing skills, maybe in a highlight, we could put this. I watched a great short over the weekend, and I thought it was hilarious because they would play this where they said the difference between cuts in construction between a framer, and they showed somebody who basically used their hand as the ruler and then sliced it, ripped it through with a saw, and it had an angle and stuff. And then they did a trim specialist, and they had somebody actually take a ruler, and then they dropped the saw down because trim are going to do angles and they're going to be so exact. And then they had furniture maker, and they had the saw that you push in on the table saw, and had really good lines on that. And I thought this is exactly what you just described, is that person, because a lot of insurance agents, a lot of commission people, they're only going to sell what they know. And that's why it's up to you to go educate yourself, so you know if they actually got the tools in their tool belt that's actually going to give you the best product for your financial life. And it made me think of that, because it just entertained me how the same problem can be solved 3 different ways, and you get 3 different results. So it's on you to kind of know what's out there so you can maximize it.